Sweeping last sector now, sir.
I think...
Ma'am!
Oh yeah, it's the 90s. Today, I'll be reviewing Mech Commander and the expansion Desperate Measures for the PC. At the end, I'll show you how to download and play Mech Commander and the expansion for free. If I could describe Mech Commander in one sentence, it would be Giant Robot Manager's Wet Dream. Mech Commander is a real-time strategy game released back in 1998. It's more of a squad-based real-time tactics game, so there's no real base building or serious resource management. You deploy a small squad of mechs to each mission, complete the mission objectives, go home, put on new weapons and robots, and do it all over again. I played this back in the early 2000s and it was amazing. Coming home after school, turning on Windows 98, load up Mech Commander CD into a disk drive, and pretending you're the commander of an elite company of giant 100-ton mechs was a memorable childhood memory. Mech Commander came around the time where full motion videos, or FMVs, were all the rage. It's those real-life actors being filmed for a video game thing? Yeah, that thing. Mech Commander was no exception, and they're pretty good too.
Sir, it's real quiet down here.
I think we can call it clear.
You think? Don't think, Mech Warrior. Find out. Finish your sweep.
This thing used to send chills down my spine when I was a kid, and it kinda still holds up today. He did more work afterwards.
Yes, the Unus Mundus network.
Right, and there were these scenes.
I'm ejecting!
This scene was burned into my memory. This dude kept going afterwards too.
You know this man?
Mech Commander has 30 missions in the base game, and the expansion, Desperate Measures, added in 12 more missions totaling in 42. Now let's get to the story. So the story, it is
the 31st century, and mankind is once again at war.
It's the future, and as always, we're trying to kill each other, but now with giant robots called mechs. In other words, nothing's really changed.
His speed advantage, and it's over, just like that.
Wow.
Mech Commander takes place in the BattleTech universe. No, not the anime one. The copyright infringement one. Yeah, that's it. BattleTech takes place in an alternate timeline where Russians become militaristic, warmongering dictators and violently hold up the regime through war. Hypothetically, of course. NATO steps in and fights Russia, NATO won, taking control over the majority of the world and uniting it. While Earth is united, some Japanese guys invent near light speed travel and we colonize the stars. It went pretty well for a while, but as it started growing larger, it became harder to keep control over the distant colonies. Imagine it's 1775, Earth is Europe, and the interstellar colonies are Americans. You probably know where this is going. War breaks out and everything goes belly up. Some Saiyans say, "Fuck this," and fly far away while the rest of humanity kills each other. This goes on for hundreds of years. The Saiyans come back as Super Saiyans and start calling themselves the clans. The clans start beating the shit out of everybody with their advanced weapons and technology. And so we're in the middle of all this. You play the role of Commander Harrison of the Inner Sphere. The clans take over your planet and we're taking it back. That's pretty much it. Lore-wise, the game doesn't explore past the established lore. It is actually even considered non-canon. Events taking place in Mech Commander all happen on one planet. The BattleTech universe spans over thousands of planets. The scale here just tickles the amount of footnotes of planetary skirmishes the universe already has. And there aren't really any significant developments during the course of the game, so it's not going to really change anything. Being non-canon was actually a double-edged sword here. On one hand, it's nice to just do whatever you want, since it's non-canon anyways, so the game had the freedom to explore different kinds of level design, and made for good gameplay. And on the other, it meant that you won't find a satisfying conclusion to the plot of the universe at large. You do find resolution for the campaign that you're playing part of, so if you're looking for some kind of huge universe-changing plot, you won't find it here. When I played it as a child, I didn't even know what BattleTech was, so I enjoyed it as is. Even now replaying it, I find the progression to be satisfying, so no complaints here. Let's actually start the game. To start, pick the original campaign. The expansion builds on top of the original, and the original kind of teaches you the game slowly, so that's where we'll start. Now this is the...
Incoming transmission.
Davian guards.
Oh yeah. They play a new FMV every 6 missions. It's like a little reward for completing the operation. It always felt like a treat seeing an FMV after a hard-fought victory. It made me feel like we're really making progress in this campaign. Anyways, there are 2 looping phases in this game. The logistical phase and the combat phase. This is the logistical phase. This is where you plan and refit your mechs before deploying into combat. On the left, you'll have the mission briefing. It's worthwhile to read each briefing, and it gets you immersed into the game while providing helpful intelligence on the mission. It provides mission objectives, potential fire support such as airstrikes, possible enemy forces, and why we're even doing this. On the top right, you'll see your current resource points and local time. Resource points are basically like money to buy new mechs and weapons from the requisition officer. The requisition officer is no longer accepting chicken nuggets as bribes, so we have to actually pay the guy. I mean, like, come on, we're on the same team and there's literally people dying out there without repaired mechs or new weapons. But hey, I guess we need to pay that student loan somehow. On the top left, you'll find the Purchasing tab and Mech Bay. In the Purchasing tab, you get to buy new mechs, mech warriors, weapons, and vehicles. Mech warriors are like pilots that control individual mechs. The mechs cannot function without one. Every few missions you'll get an update on the available roster, so it's worth checking out every few missions. Mechs range from lightest mechs called the Commando being a measly 25 tons, running at a top speed of 60 miles per hour or 90 miles per hour on the freeway, to the heavy behemoths such as the Atlas, weighing in at 100 tons, boasting 4 times the number of weapons it could carry compared to a Commando. It stands at an incredible skyscraping height of 15 meters. Yeah, the sense of scale doesn't really add up here, but whatever, just use your imagination. Anyways, I'll post this little handy chart of all the mechs and their data, such as payload and armor points in the game. The official strategy guide actually got these values wrong, so just use these values that were actually data mined, so it should be accurate. There are different kinds of weapons in Mech Commander, from lasers to missiles, and some crazy weapons like the PPC or the particle projector cannon. It shoots an electric beam and fries whatever is at the end of it. It's generally recommended to carry weapons without ammo requirements, such as cannons and missiles, as some weapons have very limited ammo storage, and once it's out for the whole mission. Repair bays could give you more ammo, but those are few and far between, so plan accordingly. You can find vehicles in here too, but I mean, come on, you have a limited space on how much of your fat ass will be delivered by Amazon Flex drivers, so you're telling me that I would even consider choosing to send a beat up pickup truck over a literal Gundam? Right. Next, in the Mech Bay, you go over your current equipment available to your campaign. They all carry over each mission, so it's worthwhile to make sure you don't lose any mechs or mech warriors. You have to make smart decisions in maintaining your mechs, purchasing new weapons, and keeping your mech warriors fresh by rotating every so often. But it's the first mission, so there's nothing to do here, so let's just dive right into combat. This is the combat phase. This is where your mechs will deploy into the mission, fight enemy forces, complete mission objectives, and come back to do it all over again. You can't go back once you launch, so it's a one-way trip. Make sure it counts. You look over the battlefield in a familiar RTS bird's eye view of what your mechs can see. Everything is in an isometric view with beautiful hand-drawn pixel graphics you can expect from the era. One main difference about this game is how they did Fog of War. The map starts blacked out with the Fog of War. Okay, understandable. But you can't see the terrain and the surroundings. This is strange because you just had the explored map in the briefing. And guess what? You can't look at it anymore. So keep a good mental note on where things are. And it gets weirder still. As you start exploring, you uncover the Black Fog of War and be able to see what's there. The stranger part is that once you see it, you're able to keep seeing it even if no one's there. You can see enemy movement or any other details about the location as if you're there. It's strange. I can't think of another game that did this, which is probably the reason why modern RTS games never repeated this feature. Going back to the game, on the top left, you'll find the Multifunctional Display, or MFD. This is your main tab of information. On the top of it is where you'll find occasional fire support such as airstrikes, remote sensors, and a camera drone to see faraway places. These are very helpful, and they're free. But they don't carry over missions, so just use them when you can. The first tab is the map. This is where you can see what's being explored so far, see radar signatures, and terrain details. The next tab is the data tab. The data tab shows information about the current selected unit, whether it's a mech, vehicle, yours, or the enemy's. You can observe your mech's details like hull integrity, weapon status, and ammo count. You can also observe details about your enemies so you can plan the optimal distance to engage. For example, let's say there is a slower enemy with a shorter range weapon. This is where you can use your faster and longer range mechs to outmaneuver the slower enemy so they won't be able to hit you. And for enemies with only long range weapons, get your mechs close to them so they can't fire their long range weapons at you. This is what they meant by a tactical game. You choose the tactics your mechs employ to get the best advantage over your enemies. Keep in mind this also applies to you, and the enemy will generally do the same against you. Early on in the game, you'll have the advantage in both the density of enemies you face and the respective tonnage as opposed to yours. In other words, you face one or two enemies at a time while having an overall bigger army against the enemy. But later on, this flips on you. You'll be fighting more enemies than your squad, and they have a bigger total army, so going in guns blazing could lead to your death. Tactics will be how you win or lose, so careful planning and positioning will be the keys to survival. In the next tab, Briefing, you'll find the mission objectives, in case you forgot. In the next tab, Salvage. This is where you see all the stuff you salvaged so far in the mission. If you captured enemy cargo, you can find what you've taken from here. Enemy mechs you kill are also salvageable. Unfortunately, it's up to random chance whether you get it or not. And the more blown up the mech is, the less likely it's salvageable. Fuel tanks, for example, blow up enemy mechs pretty well and disable them. Keep in mind, complete destruction means no salvage. So you have to choose between risking your mechs or salvage. On the bottom of the MFD, you'll find orders you can issue to your mechs. There are other keyboard shortcuts that you wouldn't really know about unless you read the manual. I'll list them on the screen, but the important ones are Hold A and left click on a target to conserve ammo while shooting. If you're, for example, shooting down like a forest or a small truck, you would want to save your valuable limited ammo for dangerous targets like mechs. On the bottom, you'll find your mechs, mech warriors, and their current status. The green HP bar represents the mech's armor points along with its ammo. So if the mech is structurally fine and hasn't taken any damage, but has no weapons or ammo, then the green HP bar depletes to 0. The red dots above the mech warrior's portraits are an indication of their health. As combat ensues, there's a chance that a stray bullet could hit their cockpit and hurt the mech warrior. If they get too hurt, they won't be able to pilot and could even end up dying. If the pilot is dead, that's it, there's no going back. They're dead for good. Unless you load an old save. That's it for the display. To move your mechs, you'll have to get used to this. It's the 90s controls. You left click to move and right click to deselect. Yeah, it was around this time when Warcraft kinda came out and reversed it forever, but for now we're gonna have to stick with left clicking. The gameplay itself is well polished and smooth. You encounter enemies naturally as you explore the map. The terrain is handcrafted and logical, so everything kinda just flows naturally. If you start to see walls, you can expect to see turrets or enemy forces. If you see buildings, you might find a stash of weapons to salvage. Roads and forests point you to the direction where you need to go. Things like that. In the beginning, you'll be deploying the lightest and smallest mechs with green, inexperienced mech warriors to missions. They'll find weapon crates and take down enemy mechs to bring back for salvage. Your army will grow slowly by salvaging what you find and training your pilots. By late game, you'll be fielding the biggest and hardest hitting mechs in the game with elite mech warriors that's been with you since the very beginning. It's a great feeling seeing your old green mech warriors that used to pilot tiny commandos now growing to have piloted a giant Atlas crushing enemy commandos with ease. However, keep in mind that the biggest mechs aren't always the optimal choice depending on the mission. Sure, you could field that Atlas with 100 tons of kick-ass, but due to its slow speed, you won't be able to catch a fast-moving target and maybe even end up failing the mission. The game progresses pretty well while keeping you on your toes, so you're always constantly engaged. Sound. Everything overall is pretty good. When lounging the logistics phase, you hear the low but tense music that makes you feel serious about readying your mechs and the lives of each pilot in your hand.
Warriors prepare for combat.
When you begin combat phase, you hear an upbeat music that keeps you focused on what's going on around you. Then transitions into a low, mellow tone so you can focus on other important sound cues like radar beeps and Mech Warrior chatter.
This is Hawk. My sensors have a new contact.
I have a new contact.
The background music isn't something you write home about. It's the transition that really takes it up a notch.
No problem, sir.
As soon as you engage enemies, the music transitions to a tense drum and horn that sounds like a battle anthem.
I have the target.
Wait here. That takes care of him.
Then, once combat is over, the music transitions back down, give you a break and catch your breath. It's also a nice indicator, so you know if there's actual combat going on. Level design. So, normally I wouldn't do this, but I felt like I had to bring this up. The level design in Mech Commander is really good. Like, look at Mission 3 for example. You start the mission, and you're like, okay cool, so let's start. What the heck was that? Oh, so you can blow up bridges. Neat. You learn this little side note and move on. The very second encounter are the fuel tanks and enemy vehicles. So you think to yourself, wait, fuel? Like explosive fuel? So you try it out. Ooh, nice. You learn something new, and it didn't take any pop-ups or an entire tutorial session to teach you that. It's seamless with the gameplay. Later on, once you're nearly finished with the mission, you encounter the last mech radar signature. Yeah, that one. So far in the game, you've only fought the lightest and smallest mechs that weigh maybe 25 to 30 tons. As you get closer, you notice the fuel tanks and a bridge leading up to the signal. Then, it moves. It reveals itself as a 70-ton heavy mech, the Mad Cat. In panic, you try to hit it, and maybe, if you're lucky enough, you notice in time that this is going to be a losing fight. But the fuel tanks. Gears start spinning in your head, and in your moment of desperation, you aim for the fuel tanks next to the Mad Cat. It explodes, it blows so hard it destroys the bridge and possibly the Mad Cat too. Now that's good level design. It makes you feel smart, like you thought of that on your own. There are different types of missions too, like escaping missions, ambush missions, defense missions, the list goes on. In one mission, you actually only get to field vehicles and no mechs at all. It's actually kind of fun, and was a nice break from the usual gameplay. Overall, I think level design is where Mech Commander really shines. Sometimes I feel like modern games handhold players too much or throw them in the deep end without thinking through on the player's experience. Personally, I prefer level design where it's designed to make you feel smart and not being coddled like a baby. That's why sometimes I just want to play a good old-fashioned 90s game. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about are the mods. I feel like the widescreen mod is pretty much mandatory. I just can't go back to 800 by 640. If you install the high resolution mod, you may notice that the game doesn't fit on your monitor and there are black bars on your menu screen. Don't worry, it's alright. The main menu and the logistical phase are the only weird experiences you'll have playing the high resolution mod. The gameplay is fine. Then there are the extra content mods. Specifically, I'll be talking about the Darkest Hour mod. Darkest Hour adds 275 new custom missions to the basic campaign. To put into perspective, each mission could take about 20 to 30 minutes. Both the base game and the expansion would theoretically take about 21 hours, and now with the mod, which has over 300 missions total, you're nearing 150 hours of gameplay. Personally, that's too much. From what I've noticed, the custom maps sometimes need more polish, especially in the level design. Well, the very first custom mission you start off with has you find salvage crates for the war effort. Fair enough. Looking at the briefing, it looks like all the crates are clumped up on the top left corner and I have 25 minutes to fit it. Okay, so I'll just take my time collecting the extra crates around the map for some nice salvage, right? Great! Oh boy, I barely finished the mission with 30 seconds to spare. Turns out the mandatory crates were actually deep in a forest and not where the briefing indicated. I might be just nitpicking here as the next few missions weren't like that, and from my understanding the Darkest Hour is a collection of other mods, so I'm just assuming not everything was designed by the author. Frankly, halfway in I was looking for a way to skip the mod missions and get back to the original campaign, but it turns out I don't have a choice. So I had to start over again in the base game, installed a high resolution mod, and haven't turned back since. If you're looking for an additional 275 missions of gameplay, then the Darkest Hour mod is for you. Personally, I'll just stick with the original campaign. Summary. In summary, what I like the best about Mech Commander is its level design. The designers took extra care to design the levels that is rewarding, fun, and allowing experimentation. There's one mission that's particularly difficult, but you can always go back and reload an earlier save, since the game saves the games automatically every time you start or finish a mission. I like that part too. You can download and play Mech Commander for free through the link in the description below. I've also attached the high resolution mod and the Darkest Hour mod links in the description. Keep in mind, if you're going to use the high resolution mod, I recommend the 1280 by 768 file for the widescreen, or the 1280 by 1024 for the 4x3 screens. And make sure you have this compatibility tab in your shortcut for the executable, otherwise it's going to crash every once in a while. This settings should be able to help you prevent those crashes in the future. Thanks for watching. Sorry this one was a little long. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments.
Mission objective.
And feel free to give me any feedback. I'm always willing to respond. Until then, see you next time.
This is ISIS.